crazy.
Okay, so back to Smoke Show. You're 5 years in now.
Yeah.
And how have you changed from the beginning and now? And in this trajectory, we'll get to that, but like, let's say 5 years from now, because what you learned in the last 5 years probably have shaped you as a person and probably understanding of life, right? Like, and how shit really operates.
Yeah. I mean, how I see it less now as just like a fun, cool thing, but also I was totally guilty of having this like fairy tale idea of that starting a business equals you will be rich and successful and within a year or two, and like this big alpha thing where it's like, oh yeah, like oh, I own a business. Like, it's not that. Like, it's not. There's so much time and effort, and it becomes more than just a business. It becomes like every single day for the last 5 years, for 20 hours a day, I'm thinking about hot sauce and I'm thinking about Smoke Show and the brand. And when it started, I think I was a little bit like naive. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I didn't know what a business entailed. I didn't know any of that. I was just winging it.
Cash flow, supply chain, all these fucking dream killers.
Yeah, exactly. That's all it was, you know? I like these things all just as a company grew, and then you start realizing like, okay, this isn't a lemonade stand. There's a lot more to building a brand and all that than what meets the eye. And you can't, it's not just fun and games, you know? Like, you have to, you know, if you want to make an omelet, you got to crack some eggs. And unfortunately, there's shit that has to get done that isn't always fun. It's not always rainbows and butterflies and going to restaurants and having big fancy dinners and celebrating success. Like, no, it's not about that. And I tell people that a lot of people who are like thinking, especially now coronavirus, a lot of like restaurant people are thinking about starting a food business, and they'll contact me and they'll be like, hey, like, I want to start this thing, or like, hey, I have this product, I want to start selling it. And I just tell them like, dude, you have no idea what, you know, the mountain you're standing in front of, and how, if you really want to do this, how shitty of a climb it's going to be, you know? And like, there's a huge, I don't know if it's because of movies or whatever the fuck TV, it's like, there's this big romantic idea of what it is to start a business. And the truth is that you have to fucking grind all day, and you have to get your hands dirty, and you have to do shit you don't want to do, you know? And it's a lot of people out there who are just like, yeah, bro, I'm just going to do this, and then I'll be fucking, you know, I'll have a Maserati in a year. It's like, no, dude, what the fuck you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's some people who are...
How long did it take you to get your Maserati?
At this rate, probably another 5 to 10 years.
Okay, there we go. You answered the next question.
Yeah, exactly.
But see, that kind of answer, isn't it almost better that your parents didn't say, oh, you know, cash flow could be a problem. You know, like setting up your 5-year plan, getting loans, this could pose... Like, they were just like, oh, go for it.
Go for it.
So do you think that came out of wisdom of just like, better to go in naive, 400 miles an hour, than to like plant
100%
negative seeds?
100%. You know, a good friend of mine, Alex Massa, who you know.
I do.
Yeah, he told me a quote one time, and I live by it now. He said, in all his wisdom, he said to me, jump off the cliff and build your plane on the way down. You know? And that's what it is.
It's
like,
really the only way to do it, because there's no preparing for anything. Like, you can come in as prepared as you can, but like something will happen on day 3 that will completely shift everything in another direction.
Yeah.
That's the way I learned.
Yeah.
Right? Because I didn't know anything about business. Dad passed away, took over the business. I thought I knew. No, I knew kind of how to sell.
Yeah.
Because I had a few years
I mean, you could sell water to a well. Let's be real.
No, I just like to make friends.
Yeah, fine. But you have the gift of gab, and we all like.
Well, we both do, right. But that's definitely not enough to run a profitable fucking empire.
Yeah.
And so you only learn when the bank calls you and it's like, yo, this and this and that ain't looking so good. So maybe we got to turn out the lights. And it's like, what? I didn't even know that existed. Like, that's a thing. That's a fucking thing. Yeah, we grew our sales. Yeah, but our bottom line went down 20%. What?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Don't we sell more, make more? Like, that's how fucking stupid I was when I started.
I know, it's fucking insane. And yeah, there's obviously a huge learning curve, especially when you get kind of handed a company, right? When your old man passed away,
Yeah.
it was like you were next in line, right? I mean, you were surrounded by people who knew the business, but ultimately it was like you were given this thing and you're like,
I was 25,
you and
baby.
your brother, and it was like, go for it, you know?
Yeah.
Which is fucking insane.
Cocky, confident dudes, but fuck.
I mean, the company at that point was doing well, right? It was like, it was an established business that was up and running.
It was established business. It had a place in the market.
Right.
Very competitive market.
Yeah.
So I learned as we went that like the size and the market share that we had stayed at a certain size because it didn't impede on other markets. And it was like strategic by my dad to be a certain size because it was like, it was diminishing returns if we got too big.
Right.
In the business model that we were in.
That, yeah.
I didn't understand that. I said, we got to fucking grow at all costs.
Yeah.
And then when we started to impede on the bigger boys in the market, they're like, okay, you want to do that? We drop our price by 2%. You lose 19% of your business.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, my dad was a lot wiser than I thought he was.
He was living in like the sweet spot. Yeah.
He existed in a sweet spot, a niche
That's
was
cool.
And so I learned a whole bunch of things like this that made me realize the only way to substantially grow market share or to grow in this business, because I'm like you, I can't just stay.
Yeah.
Like if I'm here, I need to do something. I can't just be like ride off what existed before me.
Right.
I was like, well, we have to run more efficiently for sure, because it was old school. You know, old school in the most beautiful way.
I mean, yeah.
And when you're running at that particular size, it's fine. But if you want to grow or you want to develop new products or you want to find money to invest in new products that could potentially evolve you into a greater player in the industry, you need to find the cash somewhere.
Yeah.
And so that pushed us to learn how to be more efficient and set up better production process and all that shit. But at the end of the day, it was like, no chance. Unless we're getting millions of dollars to like rebuild our entire infrastructure, there's no point in us doing this.
Did you like being in that position? Like, did you like being at in the basically more or less the driver's seat of that business? Like, when did you realize that you're like, oh, okay, you know what? Like now we all know the company's sold, whatever.
Yeah.
That like it wasn't going to be your kind of, oh, I'm going to follow my old man's footsteps. I'm going to run this thing until I'm 7 years old. Do you know what I mean? Like you wanted to pursue other things, and that's amazing. That's kind of like what we were just talking about fuck it, I'm going to do what I want to do. And
time travel.
Cool. But was it like a heavy decision for you to make, and like to like come to terms with the fact that like because your grandfather also like started in the garage door world, right? And then at one point you were like the guy who, or you and your brother, you know, I'm speaking you, but
yeah, of course.
You know,
my brother and I.
Your brother and yourself.
Episode 2, Drive with Dre.
There you go. Was it like a heavy decision to like have to cut that, to like draw the line in the sand and just be like, we're no longer in the garage door business? Or was it super easy? It
wasn't emotional. Like I'm going to sound like a cold hard bastard, but it wasn't emotional at all. It was a completely data driven / survival decision.
Right.
And it was like, I had been investing, even personally investing a lot of money to rebuild the infrastructure of the company. And we were going on, and we were ruffling a lot of feathers within our own organization, because when you change too fast, you create conflict.
Right.
And I had recently gotten sober. I was like a machine. I was disagreeable because I was too agreeable before. And I was making these things. So it's like a lot of things culminated at the same time. So we were pushing the envelope. Key employees were getting really fed up and scared because they perceived me as being like irrational, where I saw myself as purely logical. So it was, I totally empathized with their situation, because they had to run their day to day.
Right.
They had to do their jobs.
Right.
And so doing that while completely changing everything they did, the way they entered orders, the way it was a little chaotic. So after I had a few of these revelations, I realized that the changes that I wanted to make were not going to take 2 to 3 years. They were going to take 10 to 15 years. And what I was really doing was investing all this time and energy and money to be where our competition was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So then I said, add another 15 years. Let's say 30 years. Okay. And I was just ballparking shit, but I was like, it's going to take 30 years to gain 5% market share. 30 years of my life. I was like 30 at the time, or like 28.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, by the time I'm 60, I will have gained 3 to 5% market share in the garage door industry.
Right.
Eons behind technologically were my competition that are doing billions a year. And that rationale just said, I think that, and to go back to your question of me being in the captain seat, I think the best thing for the company was for me to be outside the captain seat and for someone else who has more knowledge than I do, who has more experience, more capital, probably an umbrella company, to come in and grow this. Because me alone, being like the Goomba, was going to take forever if it even got there, who knows. But if I stepped away, a mothership that could come in and wanted to acquire market share, let's say in this company, and they buy companies like us, 5 to 10 of them a year. Like we're nothing to them. They just buy us strategically. So long story short, my 30-year plans can happen in 2 to 3 years under new ownership, new leadership.
Yeah.
And when I made that decision, it's like, well, the company is actually going to be more secure without myself and my brother at the helm.
Yeah.
Purely expertise, experience, cash.
That's it.
And it was like, this will actually give us freedom because we're artistically inclined. We have imaginations, and that's what helped us in this company, but also hurt us because we tried to move too fast. We saw too far forward without dealing with today. And as soon as we made that decision, or as soon as I crunched those numbers, we got a phone call like the same week. My brother got a phone call by some guy in Italy. And
trying to sell him a Ferrari?
No, he said, we're interested in your company.
Yeah, which is
and it was kind of like, and right at that point, I was extremely driven to build something. Extremely. But as soon as I saw those numbers and understood that it was going to take way too long, and it was very stressful. It's not like this was like making music in the studio 20 hours a day. This was like a struggle, very small margins. Like, what you see on the outside is not what you see.
Or two of us
I'm sure you understand as an entrepreneur, what people see and what the reality is are two different things.
Exactly.
And we were dealing with a cool like legacy and a cool optics, but what's going on behind it was very thin, very fucking thin. So that was a tremendous stress and I was carrying that burden, my brother and I. And as soon as the thought came into mind where it's like, we can actually sell now. Sure, it's not what we thought that we could get like 10 years from now, but this gives us some freedom.
Yeah.
It gives us some runway for a few years to like try things and maybe invest in things and just go ham. And hopefully, I think we're smart enough within those 2-3 years to make something new before it all fucking falls apart.
Exactly.
But that was taking a leap. That was like taking a risk.
That's it.
Unpopular to the people who didn't understand all the data.
Right.
But long story short, no, it was not an emotional decision at all. It was a very practical, data-driven, realistic one. And I knew that the company would actually be better off.